Hello everyone, today's going to be doing a double video on two Melissa Barrera movies that came out this year, Abigail and Your Monster. As you saw in my social media posts, I met Melissa Barrera this past summer at Monster Mania, and it was really fun and honor, nice meeting her. Before I talk about both movies, I want to briefly talk about my experience meeting Melissa Barrera. Despite the crazy drama on her Instagram controversial post on Israel, hear me out. I met her at Monster Mania this past summer. I waited in line for around 2 to 3 hours. It was a long wait, it was well worth it for me. We had a nice 5-minute friendly chit-chat. She saw my Blu-ray copy of Scream 6, which I showed in a TikTok YouTube short video, link in the description. Melissa Barrera was very nice, friendly, kind, generous, sweet, soft, humble, very down-to-earth. She asked me personal questions, taking some time to invest in me as a person, like, she asked me if it was the first time ever going to Monster Mania. I told her no, I'd been to Monster Mania many times before in the past, and this past year was the first time I'd been back to Monster Mania since 2016. I told her I was at the last Monster Mania event in March meeting Sam Raimi, and I was meeting Clive Barker that day for a photo op. She also asked me how I wanted my Blu-ray copy signed, if I wanted a movie quote. I told her just her name and Sam Carpenter's signature. Melissa was a blast to meet and be around. I also met her sister for a brief second, which I thought was cool. It was nice to meet a family member for 5 seconds. In case you're wondering, who was her sister? She's not famous. She was just there being support, being a good sister for her. After getting an autograph and hearing how much I enjoy her as an actress in her movies, she gave me a hug, which is very cool and nice. It felt like getting a hug from a friend that I had not seen in a long time. My dad had no idea who she was, and she was still kind of giving my dad a hug. Here's a little funny thing of my story about meeting her. As I was talking to her, she asked me who this person was next to me. I said, "That's my father." I told her this was the first time he had ever been to Monster Mania. That in the past, we had been at other cons. Throughout the years, I kept telling my dad, "You have to come to Monster Mania with me. You'll love it, have fun," and which he did. After my Monster Mania trip, when my father got home that weekend, I showed my father Abigail as a start introducing her to her movies. Not a bad start. My dad liked Abigail right away. In the past, I met a lot of other famous horror actors that were a pleasure meeting. She is by far my favorite famous person I met at a convention. Despite all the crazy drama, she was one of the nicest, sweetest, famous people I ever met. I'll never forget and always remember that fun, special moment meeting her. After meeting her, I was like, what's not to like? Every second with her was positive, not a negative moment. Abigail was directed by the directors of Matt Benettini Open and Tyler Gillett. These two are the recent directors of the recent Scream movies, and they directed Ready or Not 5 years ago. It's based and inspired from the Universal Monsters Dracula's Daughter. When I read this was based on Dracula's Daughter, I was curious, but of course, it was not a shot-for-shot remake of the original 1936 Universal Monsters Dracula's Daughter. The movie opens up with the song Swan Lake, just like how the original Dracula movie with Bela Lugosi movie opens up. I'm thinking to myself, this is a nice tribute opening to Dracula. This is going to be a spoiler video. If you've not seen this movie yet, stop the video right here. This part is not a spoiler right here. You have this group of random criminals, people who were hired by some rich guy, kidnapped to look after his daughter for 24 hours. And the rules are no names or background story, or their cover will be blown. They all have a background story that is later revealed in this movie. In a way, this kind of reminded me a little bit of Clue, but as a vampire movie twist. It also made me think of Reservoir Dogs when Giancarlo Esposito's character gives them fake names. It was funny when he names the black guy Don Rickles, and the blonde girl asks, "Who's Don Rickles?" Which is very common these days for younger generation not knowing past legendary famous comedians. When I saw this in the movie theaters, I asked myself, how many other people in the movie theater got this joke and reference? And if you're all familiar with Disney's Pixar Toy Story movies, you may or may not know that he was the voice of Mr. Potato Head. Anyway, besides the point. Well, I did like this movie. The part when Joey points out describes the character's background like a psychic. I wish the movie spoke that for itself and the characters, except for the one scene when Abigail exposes their true identities and their past secrets. I remember around the time when this movie came out, it was being compared to Ready or Not from 2019, which I haven't seen since it came out in the movie theaters. I might reconsider revisiting that movie again. That was a movie I had no idea what it was when it came out. I did not see any trailers or marketing promotion for that movie. So basically I went to that movie blind, not knowing what the story was about at the time, and I saw that in the movie theaters with the girl I was dating at that time. So yeah, for a while after breaking up with her, I did not go back to revisit Ready or Not for that reason. It was a good movie, just a movie I saw once then I moved on, but I might give it a second viewing at some point in the future. Not to get off topic, here's an idea for a video I have, just thought for the future, down the road. Don't you hate when you break up with an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend when you're talking about music, books, movies, or that one form of physical media reminds you of your past ex-girlfriend or boyfriend? It happened to me. The actress who played Abigail, I'm honestly not sure this young kid actress who plays Abigail, the ballerina vampire. From what I've heard from other YouTube movie critics, she was in the recent Matilda Netflix movie, which I don't know anything about. I grew up watching the 90s Matilda movie with Mara Wilson, Danny DeVito. Don't judge me, yes. I used to love watching that movie when I was a little kid. I'm very fine with modern day movie actors and actresses. I don't find anything about them until I see a certain movie with them. I'm also fine with modern day movies, not knowing what's new on streaming services, and find myself having a hard time keeping up with the times. At the same time, I do my best to watch new modern day movies as best as possible. Like all of us, COVID was a setback. She does a good job in this movie where she acts all cute, innocent, and helpless victim, but she's a vampire. How she plays reverse psychology on everyone knowing their background stories, kind of like Jigsaw in Saw 2. But it was all a plan and set up for Abigail so she can get her food. All because she's being an old vampire, she's bored, and she does these kidnappings to pass the time. Whenever I rewatch this movie, I notice that despite Abigail's a killer vampire, she's misunderstood like the classic Universal monsters. All she wanted was to be loved, and she wanted a better parent. I remember when this movie came out, I had a mixed reaction marketing because I had the trailer spoiled knowing that Abigail was a vampire already, rather than being a twist that this little girl was a vampire. Or I'm not sure the way they market this movie, people would take a movie seriously on people kidnapping a little girl, thinking that's a little too sensitive. Well, look at From Dusk Till Dawn. That movie started as a crime drama, but once the main characters end up at the titty twist strip club bar, it ends up becoming a vampire horror movie. It's not the first and the last time we see one subgenre to another. Melissa Barrera does a good job in this movie. She's likable, sympathetic, despite her past mistakes of being an ex-junkie and making a mistake as an army medic. She does want to be a better person, see her little son again. Because she's an ex-junkie, she eats a lot of hard candy and sucks on lollipops. I like Melissa Barrera a lot as an actress since I saw her in the last Scream movie, that's Sam Carpenter. She's another horror modern scream queen. She's one of my favorite actresses in the past few years. Despite kidnapping the little girl before she finds out she's a vampire, she's a little compassionate to Abigail. I like there's a little bond, like how she's like a mother to her, how she tries her best to comfort her. When Abigail is kidnapped, she pinky promised Abigail. When I met Melissa Barrera, I told her how Joey was the better parent to Abigail than her real father was. Her dad was a horrible parent. Also, how despite the crazy complicated relationship, deep down, Abigail really liked Joey and believed in her. She was the only one that was supposed to look after Abigail while the others were not supposed to. Not only does Melissa Barrera do a good job with her performance in this movie, but damn, the physical things her character does, but of course, it was a stunt woman for some scenes. Like getting thrown around the library by vampires. The last 2 years, she kicked Ghostface's butt. In this movie was worse, her biggest challenge and crazy. She's facing vampires, worse than Ghostface. She's like Sarah Connor and Ripley. When I met Melissa Barrera, I told her that she agreed and commented harder to kill a vampire than Ghostface, which is true. It goes back and forth between wanting to protect Abigail, then wanting to kill her, until they finally pinky swear. Joey will help Abigail kill Dan Stevens' character Frank when he becomes a vampire. She will set Joey free, so that way she'll see her son again. It was cool to see the hero team up with the vampire to kill another vampire, kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. When Frank stabs her in the upper lower collarbone with a stick, I'm thinking to myself, Terminator 2 Judgment Day when the T-1000 stabs Sarah Connor. I'm also thinking to myself, in real life, she would be dead for losing all that blood. When she gets stuck by Frank, I'm thinking to myself, oh no, she'll become a vampire. But because she killed Frank earlier, that's why she did not turn into a vampire. Again, this part also reminded me of Hammer the Brides of Dracula. When Van Helsing was bitten, he was in the early stages after being bitten by a vampire. He'd be cured earlier. When Abigail says her father not wanting anything to do with her, When Abigail says her father not wanting anything to do with her, I was getting the sense of her father being absent and her father being neglectful to her. When her father finally shows up, Abigail stands up for Joey. He lets Joey go. Lazar, aka Dracula, lets Joey go because she protected Abigail all night and saved her life. When the gang realizes Abigail is a vampire, they have a moment discussing how to kill a vampire, The character Sammy referenced vampire books like Anne Rice and Twilight. This line felt like something out of a Scream movie, but I don't think Melissa Barrera told Catherine Newton and the writers to improvise that line, especially how Melissa Barrera was in the recent Scream movies. I hope they bring her back instead of the whole Instagram post she did. If they don't bring her back in another Scream movie, I hope to see her in other things, and maybe her and Jenna Ortega do a different movie outside of the Scream movies. Dan Stevens' character Frank references Nosferatu. When Frank, Sam, and Peter are about to go fight Abigail, Joey takes a back seat. Frank tells Sam to get garlic instead. She brings onions. Frank's reaction is funny. He says, "Those are fucking onions!" I'm not a fancy chef, I'm Italian. I know the difference between onions and garlic. Sammy wasn't too bright. It's also funny, after when they fight Abigail, he comes back injured, and Frank is like, "Don't say I told you so!" And Joey pulls the stick out of Frank's leg. Giancarlo Esposito, you might know as Gus from Breaking Bad. He doesn't have a big role in this movie, but it's simple and straightforward for him how he gathers the group together to look after Abigail after it's later revealed he was a vampire. He's been Abigail's errand boy the last 2 years. He bites Frank, turns into a vampire, and then Frank stabs him, and damn! He explodes like a balloon. Blood splatters. Holy cow. Dan Stevens, who was in Godzilla X Con as Trapper, he had a blast this year. He's a former cop. It's not mentioned. I was getting this hidden vibe that Frank and Joey met or knew each other before this event, but again, I'm probably overanalyzing that. His character was a jerk, was not smart to use his mask when he runs into Abigail. He's even worse when he gets turned into a vampire, especially I wanted to turn Joey into a vampire, so that way she can turn her son into a vampire. When he said that, I'm like, kill this son of a bitch, and it was on like Donkey Kong. Kevin Durant plays Peter, Canadian muscle body, but was bullied as a kid, but also not too bright. Despite being a big tough guy, he did have a soft side. He was friendly with Sammy. When Abigail bites Sammy, she becomes a vampire. She kills Peter. It was funny I did not see the connection who Valdez was. Burgo's played by Will Catlett. This character made us believe that he was going to be the main lead and the hero of the movie, but he dies early midway through the movie, but we don't see his death scene. It's like on the show we thought Dick Halloran was going to save the day, but instead, he gets axed by Jack Torrance. He wanted to protect and look after Joe because he did not trust the rest of the others in the group. He also sees that she had a son that she wanted to get back to. Angus Cloud, apparently this was his last movie. He died last year from a drug overdose, and he finished this movie before the strike happened. I watched the deleted scenes of the Blu-ray. Melissa Barrera gave an interview of what it was like working with him, but their one scene together was cut. When I showed my dad this movie, I mentioned how to him, not a good candidate pick for the job, but watching this movie, that was the idea, because the character was a high junkie, and he was an easy target and victim for Abigail. The movie was a little gore, but not over the top. I wasn't expecting when they stab the vampire, they explode, like something from Evil Dead 2 or Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. In a lot of vampire movies and TV shows, vampires' weaknesses are silver, garlic, and sunlight. Here's a new one. Vampires suck in their own kind. Because Abigail was too weak to fight Frank, she lost a lot of blood. That's why she asked Joey for help. I'm probably not the first person to touch upon this. When I was watching this movie with my father, he pointed this out, another vampire weakness. It's probably not the first time, but I can't think of another vampire movie or TV show where the vampires suck their own kind. I also noticed some people put too much logic. How was that Frank was stronger than Abigail because he just turned into a vampire, and Abigail's been a vampire longer than Frank? My advice: don't leave too much logic into it. Just take it with a grain of salt and accept it as it is. Since 2020, Universal has been trying to reinvent the Universal monsters as best as possible for modern audiences, like Since Invisible Man, Renfield, and The Last Voyage of Demeter. And next year, Guillermo del Toro is coming out with his version of Frankenstein, which I'm excited for. I like how they're not doing what they tried to do back in 2017 with Tom Cruise's The Mummy Dark Universe series, when they were trying to make the monsters like the Avengers, copying what the MCU did at that time. Despite, yes, I admit, the Universal monster was the first time and started the whole cinematic universe. Instead of just making solo movies, not setting up a cinematic universe, paying tribute to the classics, trying to get modern audiences to appreciate the classic Universal monsters. So far I'm okay with that, but I still have to see some of the other ones. The Wolfman trailer, I'm seeing the trailer, I don't know what it is, I don't know. I highly doubt I'll see this in the movie theater. Every time I've seen the trailer, my brain shuts off and just cannot get into it for some reason, so I don't know. We'll see. I make no promises. If it does well, then maybe I'll consider. If not, I'm skipping it. I like how the movie ends with Joey leaving the car. She finds a lollipop, sucks on it, and dries off. I also like the ending song, Burn My Tongue. Sometimes when I get in the car and leave, I play this song. Abigail may not be perfect, but it was one of the better vampire movies I've seen in a long time. I would say it's become one of my favorite recent vampire movies. And no comparison, much better than Twilight. Despite it's inspired from Dracula's daughter, they obviously changed it up. Countess Zalewska was a lesbian vampire, where in this movie, it was about a child who was neglected by her father. Good modern change up for Dracula's daughter. Now on to your monster that came out not that long ago. When I saw the trailer of this movie, the beginning when some delivery man comes by to drop off a package for Melissa's character, she's sad, depressed, heartbroken. She asks the delivery man for a hug, and the guy's like, I don't think so, and just gives him a hug. I'm joking myself, I'll give her a hug. Like I said earlier in the video, when I met Melissa Barrera at Monster Mania this past summer, she gave me a hug. She's a hugger, and she gives hugs to her fans. Thank you, Melissa. I always remember, cherish, and appreciate that. Getting a hug from an actor I've enjoyed watching in her movies in the last couple of years. I rented this movie on Amazon Prime. Just like Miller's Girl with Jenna Ortega, this movie was only shown at the movie theaters, but only limited. Again, when I went to the movie theaters to see the Substance body horror movie with Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, they advertised this movie. This movie was not released in my local theater, which makes no sense. Then what was the point then? Why show a movie trailer to a movie you were not going to show at my local movie theater? When I also saw the trailer of this movie, I asked myself, how is this a true story, or the movie said in the trailer, based on a truish story? And then made myself, wait a second. I did a little research, watched an interview with the director. She said this movie is based on her personal experience going through a bad breakup, of just making up the monster in the closet metaphors. Then it hit me like, oh, okay, now I see how this is a true story. It all made sense and added up. Your Monster was directed by Carolyn Linney. I'm not gonna lie, I never heard of her before until after watching this movie. I hope to see more from her in the near future. She did a good job of her first directorial full-length feature movie. From what I read, she's mostly directed a lot of short movies and has done a lot of acting, but I'm not familiar with her as an actress. This is her first feature full-length film directorial debut. This was an indie movie. Apparently, believe it or not, this movie was a short movie back in 2020. When this movie gets a Blu-ray release, I hope they include this short in the bonus special features. I'd be curious to check out the short movie. It was made by an indie studio called Vertical. I'm not gonna lie, I'd never heard of this studio before either. It's been said already how this movie is basically a modern take on Beauty and the Beast, especially how Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite Disney movies. Some people also compare this movie to Lisa Frankenstein, which I've heard about, but I've not seen that movie. Her co-star Catherine Newell from Abigail was in that movie. Unlike Melissa Barrera playing a badass in the last two Scream movies and Abigail, this is something a little bit different right here for her. Her character is sad, depressed, heartbroken, and vulnerable. She's a cancer survivor. They don't explain what kind of cancer she had. Laura's boyfriend breaks up with her. What a schmuck and a prick. He did not want to be her caregiver for her to help her recover from her cancer surgery. Laura moves in with her mother after having the surgery. We never see her mother, I hate to say it, a shitty mother. She doesn't take care of her daughter after having the surgery, and she's not there for her after the breakup. I mean, yes, I get it. Parents are not always around all the time, but still. But throughout the movie, you notice how Laura is all alone, and she does not have many friends. After breaking up with her boyfriend, we see Laura at her worst. One night Laura hears a loud noise upstairs. She finds the beast in her closet. She screams and freaks out. Wakes up the next morning and realizes that it was not a dream, that the beast is real. Laura texts her ex-boyfriend constantly, an unhealthy obsession. She auditioned for a role that her ex-boyfriend wrote for her in mind. The audition did not go well. She felt nervous and paralyzed. She gets a text message from her ex Jacob. Sadly, she did not get the part. Jackie Dennett got the part, who was this big-name actress on Broadway. Despite not getting the lead role, she has to consult the character with Jackie. She accepts the job. We see how when Laura's at work how it's weird and awkward being around her crappy ex-boyfriend. Watching this character being sad, heartbroken, depressed when her ex dumped her. In the past I mentioned my Natalie Wood Spun in the Grass video. I talked about my personal breakup, how that film related to my own personal breakup experience. Watching this movie, the scene where Laura's eating pie and other desserts crying, I was shaking my head nodding myself like, yup, Been there before, minus finding a monster in my closet. Like all of us, we've all been heartbroken, we stress eat. Can also relate to practicing self-love, learning to get my inner beast out of my system, and getting out of my comfort zone, building self-confidence. In a weird way, this movie was a healing movie for me on a personal level. Falling in love with your inner rage, standing up for yourself. Throughout the movie, we see how she struggles to find her voice and identity as a theater actress, and not just as a theater actress, as a woman in general. When I did some research on this movie and watched other YouTubers' perspective on this movie, one YouTuber I watched, Lady Genevia, disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by her, without plagiarizing what she said in her video to make it simple and short, she pointed out, gave a good point how Laura is treated as a woman by her ex-boyfriend to be silent and polite. She used an interview clip of Melissa Barrera where she explained what she did to describe her character Laura, how Laura doubts herself, not realize that she has a lot more to offer, can act very well, and she is very talented. Laura unleashes her feminine rage to her ex-boyfriend. That was the movie's main theme. I'll touch upon that later in this video. The monster helps Laura to build self-confidence, believing in herself. I'm not sure if I explained this part very well, but I did my best. The actor who played the monster, played by Tommy Dewey in this movie, does a good job playing the monster who helps Laura get over her ex-boyfriend and lets her inner rage out. I don't know why, his performance reminds me of a combo between a 60s Batman villain and a little bit of Herman Munster. I'm not sure that's the best comparison, but I'm trying. Apparently the monster goes back to her childhood when Laura was a little girl, when she had her first boyfriend as a kid. The monster hurt her childhood friend. Basically comes back in her life when she was sad, depressed, heartbroken, lonely, and at her worst vulnerable moment in her life. The monster wants her to move out in 2 weeks despite it's her house, but of course she stays after bonding and they start becoming close. But of course, like any monster, he has his rules. 1, don't get in his way, and 2, don't tell him what to do. And 3, don't tell anyone about him or he'll rip your throat out. Ouch. That's harsh and cruel. The monster gets annoyed at the same song being played over and over on the piano that Laura plays. I like to see when Laura and the monster are eating Chinese food, watching movies, but they're flipping the channel back and forth between Night of the Living Dead and Royal Wedding. The Beast loves horror movies. He won't admit he loves rom-coms and musicals. So funny and true about guys that won't admit their feminist side. And this part made me laugh because I admit, I was that guy. It took me a while to admit I love musicals until I saw West Side Story, Sing in the Rain, and Gypsy, which made me love and appreciate musicals. Watching that scene also made me wish I had that in my life, having a woman to watch Turner Classic Movies and horror movies combined. I like the line when Laura says, they don't make movies like this anymore. I couldn't agree with you more, Laura, on that one. I've seen Royal Wedding before, a long time ago. I'm familiar with the famous dance scene with Fred Astaire dancing on the walls. The chemistry between Laura and the monster was funny, how they act like an old married couple. When she looks at herself in the mirror, she doesn't think she's pretty, saying she's a mess, and the Beast is being positive, encouraging her how beautiful she is, which she is. Melissa Barrera is a very beautiful woman. The monster claims he's a good actor, he reads Shakespeare. Laura doesn't think she could read Shakespeare because she's not trained in it. I know the feeling. When I took acting classes, we had to read and study Shakespeare. I sucked at it, and sorry to say this, I was not a fan studying it, but that's a different story and topic for another time. She's impressed, mesmerized with Monster, the way he reads Shakespeare. She's falling for him. It's funny when Laura asks the Beast out to the Halloween part. He's like, I don't want to leave the house. Laura's like, fine, whatever. She will go by herself, what she does. Seeing Laura dressed up as the Bride of Frankenstein makes me wish I could go to a Halloween costume party as a couple, where I'm dressed as the Frankenstein monster, and my girlfriend will be the Bride of Frankenstein. As I said before in my past videos, Universal's Frankenstein Monster is my favorite Universal monster movie. The Beast shows up, it's Halloween, and blend in. He came in for favor of her. He is dressed up as a business monster. Laura's not having any fun, but when the Beast arrives, now she's having fun. Another lesson this movie shows that Laura learns to have fun being on her own independently. I like the dance scene when Laura dances with the Beast. It's a very beautiful dance sequence. Laura finds her ex-boyfriend Jacob kissing someone. The Beast scares her and deserves it. Jacob falls down and hurts himself. After leaving the party, she goes back to her place. Laura and Monster have sex. It was the best sex of her life. Laura's ex-boyfriend Jacob was such a jerk and asshole, a narcissistic, selfish, horrible person. I hated this character. The play that he wrote was originally supposed to have Laura in the lead role, but like a douchebag, he went with a different actress, not giving Laura enough credit for how talented an actress that she really is. At rehearsal, Laura defends herself and stands up against Jacob. When I saw this part, I was clapping for her like, good for you. After work is done for the day, they have an intimate moment. I had a little beef with Laura on this one. She said that she still loves despite she does not want him anymore, despite yes. We all may still have a place in our hearts with our past exes, but deep down, we don't want them anymore after the way that person broke our hearts. Laura comes home and finds Monster's secret lair where he lives, like arrogant fan of the opera. She tells me she got fired from the meltdown during rehearsal, and that she had sex with Jacob. Monster is heartbroken. They have a bad moment. They fight and argue. Laura blames the Beast. Despite he did help her get out of her shell, he left. She feels bad for what she said to him and misses Monster. When Laura tells the Beast the truth, it's not like cliched in most rom-com movies where one person broke someone's heart after cheating on them. I'll explain why that is in a little bit. Laura gets her diagnosed that she is cancer-free. She feels sad that she had nobody to talk about or good news on her cancer-free. She's back to square one again. Jackie Daniel was the lead actor in the Broadway show, comes to visit her, appreciate her standing up for her. She was sorry for not knowing about her and Jacob used to date. She's not a bitch or narcissistic. It was not her hooked up with Jacob at the party. As it turns out, it was Laura's friend Maisie was the one who had sex with Jacob at the Halloween party. If you notice, whenever Laura's about to tell Maisie something, she makes excuses on why she has to leave, whether going to karate class or somewhere else, where in reality, she was going to have sex with Jacob. Not a good friend, and she betrayed Laura. Jackie the actress was a better friend and acquaintance to Laura than her real friend Maisie. Jackie has Laura take her place in the show. It's showtime. The movie ends where Laura's performing despite she was not supposed to play the leading role in the play, and the audience are praising her performance. Her shitty ex Jacob is mad that she's doing the play. The monster kills Jacob. Laura gives her all singing the song. The crowd is in shock and panic over seeing Jacob's dead body. I hate to say it to disappoint you all. The monster, the beast, is a metaphor and not real. It was Laura that killed Jacob. The beast was Laura. Laura and the beast are one. The beast was in Laura's head. My first viewing a little confused on that part, but my second viewing I understood a little bit more. It's like a Black Swan ending, or like some people get disappointed when the beast and being the beast turns back to being human again after the curse is broken. Laura and the monster have the same taste and common interest in movies, food, and are both artistic. Laura masturbated, did not have sex with a monster. A good rom-com horror movie for non-horror fans that's not too bad. No gore, not a satanic cult, no ghosts, supernatural, zombies, body horror. Not a slasher movie, despite there is one kill scene, but does not count as a body count. A very funny rom-com horror movie. Coming from somebody who's not big on rom-coms, this movie, and there are some exceptions, certain rom-com movies I do like. But then again, what drew me to this movie was Melissa Barrera. Love her a lot as an actress. Was very invested in this movie, had a lot of fun with it. I felt like I was in the movie. Despite it was not a musical, it had a little small element to a musical. You can also say it's another movie that parodies a little bit of rom-com movies, especially if it's a little homage tribute to Turner Classic Movies and Fred Astaire. It's not the first time Melissa Barrera has done a musical. She did In the Heights from 2021 and Carmen. I own In the Heights on Blu-ray. I have not seen it yet. I will check it out sometime in the near future soon. I hope to see her do more songs from her. Maybe someday she'll have her own album. I also need to see Carmen also. You can tell Melissa Barrera was giving her all and was having a blast with the singing and dancing. My only complaint is I wish this movie was being shown at my local movie theater. This could have been a fun movie to watch on the big screen, but it was still fun to watch in the comfort of my own home. Was it goofy sometimes? Yes, but I found it its touching moments sometimes. But all in all, I liked this movie and enjoyed it. I had fun with it. If you want a good Valentine's Day movie to watch this upcoming Valentine's Day, I recommend this movie. This was a comfort movie. We'll most definitely own this movie on Blu-ray right away when it comes out. If you love theater and Broadway, this movie is a must for you. Once again, the highlight was watching Melissa Barrera in this movie.